Gold. That's the nothing personal word of the day. It is Thursday, July 17th, 2025, and we're going for the gold, baby. Is it possible that you will see Bryce Harper batting for the United States of America in the Olympics in Los Angeles in 2026? It's the talk of the town. And this talk goes back not a year, not 4 years. This goes back to when Casey Wasserman and I were in diapers. Well, that's not that far back. Well, yeah, it sort of does go that far back. Casey Wasserman, the chairman of LA 2026. I wonder whether he realized what he was taking on when he decided, hey, it's a good idea. Makes perfect sense. Fires and COVID and everything else, be damned. Let's have the Olympics in Los Angeles. It's going to be great. We'll get billions of dollars of sponsors. How about if I go meet with Rob Manfred and figure out a way to get major league players to play in baseball in the Olympics? Now, this is an epic story because this goes back before the World Baseball Classic even started. The World Baseball Classic, which has become a staple, a fixture, a phenomenal tournament that takes place every 4 years, including, might I add, this coming March, when Mark DeRosa and Team USA, who just added Cal Raleigh, will be attempting to beat Japan, Puerto Rico, Dominican, etc., Venezuela. The World Baseball Classic only started because one day we got a memo, important meeting, owners, presidents, pay attention. The Olympics have completely screwed us. They've eliminated baseball as a sport, and that's unacceptable. We need to do something. Let's see if we can create content. Let's see if we can create a tournament that would, quote unquote, make people forget about the Olympics and the fact that baseball is not a part of the Olympics. So baseball removed, Olympic sport, absurd. Then baseball was added back as an Olympic sport one time only in Japan. And the thought was, when Japan hosted the Olympics, the rule was, which is a funny rule, that, hey, if the Olympics are being played in a country and that country is known for or has an attraction and an affinity and a relationship to the sport, then we'll make it an Olympic sport. Now, it's a good thing that Japan wasn't known for like tiddlywinks. So baseball's back, but with amateurs. Amateurs meaning non-major league players, non-roster players, meaning you had minor leaguers, you had college players, and the United States of America said to themselves, well, this doesn't seem to be working very well. There's got to be a way to get pros in there because it's not about the Olympics requiring amateur status. Those days are done. You can get paid. No worries. Remember Barcelona, 1992? The dream team? Forget the new dream team, the third dream team. The dream team. Bird, Magic, Patrick Ewing, Barkley, Christian Laettner. You got that. So then the thought was, well, we've got the World Baseball Classic, but we really would like to get baseball back in the Olympics. It was pretty cool in Japan. What about if we get it back for Los Angeles because the United States, national pastime, America's pastime? It makes sense. But then the Olympic Committee said, well, what about major league players? So Rob Manfred, even when I was in the sport, the conversation with Bud Selig, Rob Manfred, the people in the commissioner's office, the other team executives, there is no way we are letting our players play in the Olympics. We barely want to let them play in the World Baseball Classic, and we own the damn thing. So forget the Olympics. Risk of injury, and by the way, the timing's terrible. You can't have a break in the season. We have an all-star break that goes from Sunday to Friday. That's it. All-star game Tuesday, home run derby Monday, take the day off Wednesday. You have a workout Thursday. We're all the same. We're all routined in baseball, which is today, by the way, is that Thursday. Teams are doing workouts, optional for the All-Stars. Then you play Friday. When teams open on the road, their teams are traveling to their road city today. It's the Olympics. How are you going to get a full Olympic tournament in? Just not going to happen. Then all of a sudden, it became a point of money, where the thought was, wait, if we can get back in the Olympics, we don't have to not do the World Baseball Classic. We can do the World Baseball Classic and have our major league players in the Olympics if we can find a way to not have an all-star game, which is a far more difficult conversation, which we're going to have, and instead make sure the Olympic tournament is played just within the same 5 days that a break would be, because then we don't have to worry about all the players who are not in the Olympics sitting around in the middle of a season with nothing to do and then having to be built back up if they're pitchers or get at bats if they are hitters because they lose their timing. If we can do all that, then I think we would talk about having professional players play in the Olympics. Wait, we can't have the players fly different time zones. They won't do that. So it's got to be an Olympics in the same time zone of one of the United States time zones from LA to New York. So you got 3 hours to work with. That's about it. I mean, you could do it in Iceland, but there aren't any stadiums there, so it'd be super difficult to do. So let's just say the 3 time zones in the United States. All right, we can do that. Then we'd have to make sure that it's played in that period in July when we would normally have the All-Star break. All right, we can do that. We can speak to Casey Wasserman. We can speak to the Olympic Committee and see if they can schedule it in that time frame. Speak to the broadcaster, NBC, figure that out. All right, now what about the money part? World Baseball Classic, we have it figured out very clearly. When we lend a player to play in the World Baseball Classic, if that player gets Diaz'd, which is the new word we use, sorry, Mets fans, sorry, Coca. Diaz is when you get hurt in the World Baseball Classic and miss time, significant time. If you get Diaz'd, you get your salary back. Whatever you pay to that player during the course of that injury is refunded to your team. Okay, we can do that, but that's going to be very costly for Olympic players. Because who would pay that? Because in the World Baseball Classic, we were more apt to pay it. Why? We were getting the revenue. Think about the economics of it. When you own something and you are trying to get that entity, the World Baseball Classic, to be popular and profitable, you have the ability to find revenue to go with the expenses that you're incurring. What revenue is Major League Baseball getting from the Olympics? I can't think of any, but give me a minute. We've got time here. It's a 2-hour show now. Hold on. Wait for it. Sponsors, no, that goes to the Olympics. Venues, oh, what if it's in a venue where we can collect venue money and then share it amongst the 30 teams? No, that's not going to cut it either. Oh, no. My mind's a blank. If you can get to me at David P. Samson and say, David, you're missing all of the revenue Major League Baseball gets, get to me and I'm happy to read it. So that's a problem because we may have outflow with no inflow. But what if we take money set aside in the collective bargaining agreement, pots of money that is part of the CBA that gets spent in a discretionary basis by both the league and the union? There are pots of money throughout the collective bargaining agreement. What if we take part of that pot of money, use that on insurance premiums in order to get insurance on all the players? We could do that. That may work, actually. Now, what do we do about the timing? Well, the timing is such that Casey Wasserman and the Olympic Committee said, no problem. We will do the Olympics in 2026 from July 15th to July 20th, a Saturday to a Thursday. Brilliant. That's coincidentally just about exactly the break. Therefore, the normal All-Star break. We don't have to in any way go to our broadcast partners and say we're delaying the season into mid-November because Fox doesn't like that. They did it for when we had a new CBA after that lockout a couple of years ago. They extended the season by a week, but generally they don't like doing that. But we don't have to go to anybody because that's the exact break that's worked into the schedule. Perfect. Until the players union and the owners and the cities and the teams said, well, we need an all-star game. We're not going to go a year without an all-star game. How do I know that? Because one of the proposals we had on the competition committee and on the strategic planning committee within baseball was, let's move the World Baseball Classic to July, the semis and the finals. Therefore, players will be stretched out, pitchers will be stretched out, less chance of an injury. It's all going to be great. And every 4 years, we'll eliminate the All-Star game and do the World Baseball Classic instead. We could not get any momentum for that thought. Why? One, cities like hosting the All-Star game. Unlike the NBA, where you can't find people who want to host it, in MLB, cities want to host it. All of us want to host the All-Star game. Two, that's an interesting one, actually, because what about all the bonuses that are paid to the players to be All-Stars? What about the fact that it becomes part of their resume, part of their legacy, part of their statistical being is to be an All-Star? It doesn't, we'd have to change arbitration criteria to include All-Star or Olympic appearance. Or maybe we put in every contract that if you're an All-Star, you get a $50,000 bonus. We're going to talk about this later in the show. If you're not an All-Star, but we feel like paying you the bonus, you'll get a bonus. Why don't we add, if you're an Olympian, you get an Olympic bonus. Do you get a bigger one for gold or silver or bronze? What if you don't medal at all? Is it just being on a team? But then you're going to have players competing and feeling like they got to play in the Olympics, even if they don't want to, for whatever reason they may have, but they'd want to be an All-Star. So you got to figure out contractually how that's going to work. So that's just several of the issues about putting Major League Baseball in the Olympics. But here's the good news. Rob Manfred and Tony Clark are feeling really good about it. Tony Clark said, we're willing to talk, and we are talking, but we really have to think about players who aren't participating. And is he talking about the players who have all-star clauses who aren't participating? No problem. Rob Manfred said, I've got a solution to that. Let's put the all-star game in San Francisco. Wouldn't that be perfect? Because then the all-star game in San Francisco would be directly where the players would be. Well, hold on. How would that work? Would there be an all-star game during the Olympic time? That doesn't seem to make sense. You can't change when the All-Star game is going to be this soon. It's in 2026. Oracle Park, it came out yesterday, is the front runner to host the All-Star game in the year that the Summer Olympics are being played in Los Angeles. I may have said Olympics 2026. I meant Olympics 2028, but it doesn't matter. You got the picture. But if the San Francisco Giants host the All-Star game in 28 and baseball has not committed actually where that game would be hosted, then in theory, could players be playing in the Olympic tournament? Because you want the best of the best in the Olympics. Do you have them with a day off? Except there's probably not a day off between the 14th, the 15th, and the 20th when they would do the Olympic baseball tournament. So how would they do that? Would it be anybody who's not in the Olympics, and that would be their way of possibly staying ready? But you don't need to stay ready because the break is the length of the regular break. Why is this an issue? Because the union and the league are arguing about so many other things that when they actually have commonality of purpose, they tend to keep it to themselves. So Tony Clark had to come out with all of these statements about, hey, we got to figure out what it's going to look like, what's going to happen to players who aren't participating, what are the scheduling adjustments, what are the travel considerations, what does it mean with regards to players and insurance and all the other things. Meanwhile, he's, eye watch trying to, represent the players. Rob Manfred says the other thing, hey, I got to tell you, the idea of playing LA in 28, regardless of the merits of ongoing Olympic participation, wink, wink, we're not flying to Asia during July to do the Olympics. So regardless of that, he said to the Baseball Writers Association, this is an opportunity to market the game on a really global stage, not just partially global when we go to London and Mexico City and all the places we go. Therefore, they're going to find a way to play 162 games in 2028. There will be a new collective bargaining agreement by 2028, even if there's a stoppage in 27, that will include what the Olympic participation is going to look like. It's going to include what the All-Star game is going to look like, because within the CBA, you really get delineated all these things. And again, later in the show, we're going to talk about the All-Star game and bonuses. But with the new CBA, it will include all of these provisions because it is in the best interest, not just of Casey Wasserman and Los Angeles and the United States of America. It's in the best interest of baseball and its players to be in the Olympics, because what our dream was that the World Baseball Classic would take the place of the Olympics. After all of these years, the World Baseball Classic is hugely successful, but it really never did take the place of the Olympics. It never did attain status of FIFA's World Cup, as an example. Therefore, you do want baseball in the Olympics. You do want major league players because you want to show the best of the best. And that's what you're going to see happen. We are just beginning to see conversations about this. Today's Nothing Personal is brought to you by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Crowns are a funny thing in baseball because everybody wants one. They want to have the World Series crown. They want to have the crown as the best team in each city in which teams are. Everybody, when you have multiple sports teams in your city, we want it to be the best in Miami, as an example. Part of how we measure that is in wins and losses. Part of how we measure that is in World Series championships, revenue, team worth, valuations, etc. Minnesota's got a funny situation going. It's another one of the baseball teams that's for sale. You've heard me discuss that the Pohlad family, one of the great trivia questions of all time, I'll give it to you again. If you happen to do trivia night, just know if you're asked who was the richest owner during the times of contraction in Major League Baseball in the early 2000s, the richest owner was Carl Pohlad, who owned the team that was going to be contracted. That's how I tell you that the correlation between how rich your owner is and how high your payroll is not necessarily direct, other than Stevie Cohn. So Carl Pohlad died, and then his children and grandchildren have taken over the team. But the Twins have been for sale for over a year. And you know we have a wait to see that the Twins are going to get sold. You know that the Twins were going to be sold to Justin Ishbia, Matt Ishbia's brother, the owner of the Suns. And you know that Matt Ishbia and Justin said, I thought we'd take over the Twins, but nah, we're from Chicago. Let's buy the White Sox instead, after Jerry Reinsdorf dies. And that deal happened. That left the Twins with a real problem. They were trying to sell the team, but the person they were trying to sell it to said, we appreciate that, but we choose Chicago over Minnesota. So the Twins have again been for sale. Rod Manfred, when he met the media after the All-Star game, thought that it was important to give an update on the Twins sale. And the update that he gave was a fascinating one, because he acknowledged that the Twins are asking $1.7 billion. That has been out there, and that seems to be the magic number. The Orioles went for 1.73. It is purported that the Tampa Bay Rays are going for 1.7. So let's pretend that's the magic number, which we know from the other sports that teams are not related to each other in sale price. But let's just say in baseball they are. And we know that they are looking for a bid that they haven't quite gotten yet. Because what we heard is that there were offers around $1.5 billion that the Pohlad family rejected. Now, of course, when you look at capital gains tax and you look at what you're taking home, $200 million, 1.5 to 1.7, it's meaningful even at a 50% rate, which it's not, but just assume it is. That's $100 million that you are saying that, okay, we'll pass on that. So the Twins said, we're not going to do that. So when Rob was asked about the Twins sale, listen to what he said. He said, this is a small business, right? All those bankers that are out there ain't that many of them. They all talk to each other. When it becomes clear that you have a leader in the clubhouse, everybody else kind of backs away, right? Because they kind of get a feel for price. And unless they're prepared to top, they're going to move on and do something else. So a big part of the delay in Minnesota was associated with the leader in the clubhouse who made a decision to do something else. Commissioner, you know I love and respect you, and I love the fact that you're commissioner, but that's not exactly right. And I want to help you understand why. And I don't mean you, Rob, because you understand it. You felt this was an important quote to give. The reason why I didn't hire a bank to do the sale of the Marlins is because there is zero added value that they give you when you are selling a team. Zero. Because you say your team's for sale, and it's not a secret. It's not like they're identifying people who don't know that a team is for sale, because we're pretty public for a private company. We stand up on a mountain and say our team's for sale, come make offers. When we give an exclusive negotiating window to somebody, we are doing that for a reason, because we have gotten the price that we want, and we are giving that group the opportunity to come to final agreement without them thinking that us, the seller, that we are shopping the deal to all the other groups who are trying to buy. We read that in Tampa, the now rumored owner, the new owner of the Rays, had an exclusive negotiating period. I told you at the Marlins, we had an exclusive negotiating period with the Kushner family. We didn't announce it at the time. It's not been made public before, but we had that exclusive negotiating period, and we couldn't come to a final deal, and therefore that period ran out, and then we moved on to all of the other groups. Now, wink, wink, during an exclusive negotiating period, if you think that as a team executive, that you, meaning me, in charge of selling the team, meaning me, because you don't want to deal with bankers, if you are not keeping the other groups informed, then you're not doing your job. When you sign an exclusive negotiating agreement with a party to enter into a final asset purchase agreement, what you are saying is that you will not do a deal with anybody else. When it says exclusive negotiating, that's the title of it. The body of the agreement that I signed was an agreement saying, hey, it's just you, babe. It doesn't mean that, oh, I happen to be at Wendy's and I said, well, they're not a sponsor. I don't want to say Wendy's. I happen to be getting a bite of food, and I happen to be talking to somebody who I know wants to buy the team. Hey, Alex. Hey, Derek, don't you worry your little head, because this team is very much still for sale. A little wink, wink. Now, if we had come to an agreement with the Kushner family, that would have been that. And then you call up A-Rod, you call up Derek and all the others who were bidding, and you say, hey, we couldn't get a deal done with you. Sorry, we're going in a different direction. That is totally normal and totally fine. So when Rob is talking about the fact that there was a quashing impact on other people wanting to bid for the Twins because there was a thought that Justin Ishbia was buying the Twins, it's total horse hockey. If there's someone who wants to buy the Twins and you know that Justin Ishbia has an inside track, you call up the Pollard family and say, what's the number? Is he at 1.7? I'll be at 1.7. You sure you don't want me? Is he at 1.6? I'll be at 1.6. Well, I'll come up with my own number. How about 1.65 with fewer purchase price adjustments? I want to give you a minute on purchase price adjustments, because every time we read a number, $10 billion for the Lakers, $6 billion for the Celtics, or 7.3, 1.7 for the Rays, that's just a number. 1.2 billion, that's just a number. What are the purchase price adjustments associated with that number? Meaning, what is the amount of money discounted from that number that's actually used as the transaction price? So you take debt away from that. You may take away some bad contracts away from that. You may take away from some future liabilities, some deferred money that you owe to players. There's all sorts of adjustments that can take place. And those adjustments are not by law, they're by negotiation. So you could have three groups offering $1.7 billion for your team, but every one of those offers is different, because one of the people offering 1.7 may say, I don't want even $1 in purchase price adjustments. 1.7 means 1.7. Another guy may say 1.7, but I'm not going to pay for Rocco Baldelli, so it's really 1.6. I mean, that's too much money. Baldelli doesn't make $100 million, but it's a negotiation. I think you get what I'm saying. So therefore, the Minnesota Twins are going to figure out how to get their team sold, because we have a wait to see that says the team's going to be sold before the start of next season. And we don't want to miss the wait to see. So it's not a matter of how many banks there are or what the price is or the fact that Ishbia was around and then not around. Don't worry. Expansion. I love expansion. Who doesn't love expansion? We've talked about it with Major League Baseball. We go on the radio and do hits all over Coca. We do them in Orlando. Hey, we want baseball. Nashville, we're good for baseball. San Antonio, come on, David. In basketball, it's all about Seattle and Vegas. Have you ever heard two more cities as a bigger fait accompli? People sometimes say fait accompli if you speak French. A fait accompli for where NBA expansion would be. Adam Silver had a Board of Governors meeting, and my God, if you're from Seattle, you are despondent beyond repair. So I want to help out the few percent of the people in Seattle. We're not as big as I'd like to be. So if you're in the Seattle area right now, listening or watching on the Nothing Personal with David Samson YouTube channel, tell your friends about it. We want to have a much bigger presence in Seattle. But I assume that you're despondent beyond repair because of what Adam Silver said after the Board of Governors meeting. He talked about expansion, but he said literally to reporters who were there listening to his press conference, who are from Seattle, who've been following around Adam Silver like a dog follows his owner, thinking that any day now, Seattle's going to get a team back. To which, on the side, I whispered to the media members who were from Seattle, "Hi, my name's David Samson. And all you had to do was keep the Seattle Supersonics by building a new arena, and they never would have moved to Oklahoma City. And then you would have had SGA maybe. And now you're spending way more to get a team back that you lost. That seems like a silly plan, but I digress." Adam Silver looks at the writers from Seattle and says, "I don't want to be glib about this. You're obviously here as a representative of Seattle. I was at the league office when we were operating in Seattle. We have an NBA team there. It's an incredible market. I wish standing here as the commissioner, I had teams to dispense to many different markets who are interested in NBA basketball." This is Adam Silver. This is like when you don't want to go out with someone and you sort of make up ridiculous excuses like, "Oh, my dog ate my homework." He said, "I think we also have this greater obligation to expand if we do so in a very deliberate fashion, in a way that makes sense holistically for the league. That's really the best I can do." And then he said, "We're like at day one of this process." And all the people in Seattle were like, "What? Day one? It's been 3 freaking years that we're going through this, that we thought we were about to be named. How can it possibly be day one?" Well, here's how. It turns out that the owners of the National Basketball Association are looking at what the new national TV deals are, even Jimmy Dolan, and they're dividing it by the number of teams, and they're saying, whoa, we're going to need a really huge expansion fee. We can't do what Rob did and waive a relocation fee for John Fisher. We can't have an expansion fee below multi-billions of dollars. How are we going to find Seattle? They're not going to pay multi-billions of dollars in an expansion fee. This is a real problem. And on top of that, I'm not sure I've got the owner's vote in the NBA to actually approve expansion. If you don't have the votes from the owners, Adam Silver can want to go back to Seattle all he wants, or LeBron can get the franchise in Vegas, or Shaquille, all you want. If you don't have the votes, NGTH, baby, not going to happen. So it turns out that Jimmy Dolan, obviously, if Adam Silver says the sky is blue, Jimmy Dolan says the sky is gray. If Adam Silver says he wants expansion, Jimmy Dolan says, I don't want expansion. That's easy. That's one vote. No one cares. But it turns out that it seems, and Bill Simmons has talked about this among other people, that there is this resistance that's not just Jim Dolan, but it's actually other owners. It's not just Jim Dolan. And actually, there is a senior team official off the record who came out and said it's more than JD. actually said that the league is less inclined right now to push for expansion now that the new media deal is done. They're less inclined because of the new collective bargaining agreement. There are actually people who are rethinking. This is according to the league official himself, herself, themselves. Cut that however you want. There are people here who are rethinking it, saying, hey, we really, the likelihood that we're going to expand, it's really not going to happen. This is all a ploy. NBA expansion is guaranteed. Whoever is against it, whether you're Jim Dolan, whether you're any of the other owners, when you're trying to figure out whether your sport's going to be diluted because you have not enough players, we talked to Stan Van Gundy about it, bad idea for expansion in terms of the quality of players. All of that you can throw away. It is a guarantee the NBA expands. Whether it's to Seattle and Vegas, wait to see, not official, but it will be. That said, all of this talk right now, it's just negotiation, because what you're doing is you are trying to maximize the expansion fee from prospective owners in cities around the country. You are saying out there, hey, Seattle, sorry, there's so many places who want teams, and we don't even know if we want to expand. Then someone calls Adam Silver and says, here's an idea. What if I give you $5 billion for an expansion fee? Will you like that? And all of a sudden the owners do the math and say, that makes dollars and cents now. So all of this talk by Adam Silver, it is absolute horse hockey. It is absolute, very simple negotiation. Every Wednesday, put this up, Coca, please, if you don't mind. Every Wednesday we do, and we did it yesterday, fantastic second hour where we answer your questions. So you want to talk to Samson. I'm David Samson. There's a phone number where you can leave a voicemail. Please call that number right now. You can press pause unless you're watching us live, in which case don't do it for about an hour and 10 minutes. 631-377-4869. If you're watching on the DraftKings network, it's about at 10 o'clock. Once it's off the network, call that number. Leave a voicemail. If you want, you can actually DM me at David P. Samson on Twitter. You can find me, or DavidSamsonPodcast.com. You can find me, but the calls are more fun. 631-377-4869. The second thing I wanted to remind you of is today is the deadline, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Mountain, 3 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Zulu. The opportunity to eat lunch with me will disappear. And I happen to know a few people who wouldn't mind a lunch, and I'll buy you lunch. All you have to do is bid on Charity Buzz. It's a donation to the Bridgehampton Child Care and Recreational Center. It is an amazing place out in the Hamptons because there are more underprivileged children and adults here than you realize, way more than you realize from just thinking about what the Hamptons means. So there's a QR code on the screen. Please do that or go to Charity Buzz. You've got till today at 4 p.m. Eastern. Bid, and we'll have lunch together, and it'll be fun. All right, we're going to take a break now. After the break, we're going to get to our review, and then we're going to get to talk about Bradley Beal. We'll be right back. Whether you call it soccer, football, or something else, you can take a shot to win cash with Heineken and DraftKings while watching the world's most popular sport. Make predictions on some of the biggest matches of the year and compete for $5,000 a contest in 15 free pools. Heineken is a lager for any league, and you'll enjoy action from the first to the last. Must be 21 plus to enter. Eligibility restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. See DraftKings.com/Heineken for details. It is time for the review. My favorite part of the show. Well, actually love the entire show. I love that I get to watch a movie every day. And I love it on Thursdays. I get to review one movie from my top 100, which can be found at davidsampsonpodcast.com. I'm reviewing today a movie from 1982. Don't panic. It has aged perfectly. It is a hugely important movie to watch given what is going on today. It's a movie called Missing. It's a movie that stars Jack Lemmon and Sissy Spacek. It's a movie about what happens in Chile when an American gets disappeared. You see, there was an actual coup. This is a true story. There's stuff that goes on in other countries that you would say to yourself, that can never happen in the United States. And the hope today is that it can't happen in the United States, though people are definitely concerned that it could happen in the United States. But back in Chile, there was a coup, and the thought was, let's round up a bunch of foreign people, Americans, and then let's kill them. This movie is about the father of John Shea, who plays the American who got kidnapped, and Sissy Spacek, his wife, and what they had to do to figure out what happened to their son and husband who became missing. The reason why it's in my top 100, it's one of the top 100 movies I've ever seen. The reason why it will stay in my top 100 when I get around to redoing it is that some movies stand the test of time because they're as relevant now as they were 40 plus years ago. And some of the things that have happened around this world in countries that have taken place in a time when you say, oh, that instability doesn't exist today. And then you look at where some of the people who are totally innocent, tax-paying people are getting deported back to countries where this type of government, this type of situation, yeah, I'm talking to you, Nicaragua, this type of political unrest exists where safety is not considered ever of its citizens or of anyone there. Just a little hint, if the United States suggests that you get out of there, maybe you should get out of there. Random number generator. Let's do it, Coca. Next Thursday, we're going to have a show. What are we going to review out of my top 100? Hit the button. Oh, I've only seen this movie one time, and I loved it so much. RRR. People would be shocked that it's number 21 on my list of all-time movies. I'm going to watch it again to make sure it stays at 21, but I remember when I watched it the first time, it was jaw-dropping. RRR. That will be next Thursday. If you're looking for what movie you're going to watch tomorrow, I'm going to review Old Guard 2, Charlize Theron. Why not? Old Guard 1 was fantastic in terms of distraction. So I'm going to watch Old Guard 2 at some point today. Coca, can I borrow 100K? Do you have that by chance? Yes? No? Can you muster up 100K to give me? Because I believe that I deserve a bonus, because I don't know if you know this, but I should have won an ESPY. It's in my contract. If I win an ESPY, then I would get a $100,000 bonus. And I believe I should have won. And if I believe I should have won, I believe that you should pay it. I'd ask Dan Levitar, maybe he's the one. Let me get him on the phone. Hey, Dan, I know we work together at Meadowlark. Dan, hello. He doesn't take my calls. Dan, can you give me $100,000? Can you imagine winning $100,000 for something you don't actually win? The Texas Rangers yesterday said, hey, Nathan Eovaldi, I'm sorry you weren't an all-star, but we're going to pay you your $100,000 bonus anyway, as though you were an all-star. You want to know why I'm worked up about this? We went over the Christopher Sanchez $50,000 bonus that was paid when Christopher Sanchez wasn't an all-star, because Dave Dombrowski and John Middleton said, oh, I want people to love us. I want players to love me. I'm going to give you $50,000. And now the Texas Rangers and their president of baseball ops, Chris Young, said, anything you can do, I can do better. I can do anything better than you. Because my guy, Nathan Eovaldi, his all-star bonus is $100,000. And do you know why he wasn't an all-star? Because he had an all-star first half. That is true. But do you know why he wasn't an all-star? Because he pitched on Sunday. I told you something earlier, and you know that when there's a correction, I will give it to you. I make mistakes. We're a live show. I have no script. This is me talking to you with topics in front of me. That's it. And when I have a correction, when I do something wrong, let me know, and I will make the corrections. Several things I've gotten wrong recently, and you've told me. Number one, none of you told me this. I had to be told this by Major League Baseball because they do listen to the show. I didn't realize in the new CBA they had made a change with the All-Star game. Because what I had told you is that pitchers are named to an All-Star team, and if you pitch on Sunday before the All-Star break, you are not available to pitch and you will be replaced. That used to be how it was done. Well, the new collective bargaining agreement specifies that anybody who pitches on Sunday cannot be named an all-star. Any starting pitcher on Sunday cannot be named. It's right there in the CBA, which means the union agreed to it, which means the owners agreed to it, which means that if it's your turn in the rotation and you pitch Sunday, whether you're the number 1 starter, the number 5 starter, whether you're the best pitcher in the league or the worst pitcher in the league, whatever that is, you are not allowed to be an all-star, which means that any bonuses you have in your contract, you're not eligible for all-star bonuses. Did the Texas Rangers find that to be unfair? Did they know when they were putting their rotation together, when they were naming their starting pitchers, that they had Nathan Eovaldi going on Sunday? Did the Phillies know that they had Christopher Sanchez going on Sunday? You bet your sweet bippy they did. And when you have a pitcher going Sunday, the rule is they're not all-stars. And the rule in the contract is when you're not an all-star, you don't get the all-star bonus. And one thing you're taught in president's school is you don't give more to the union than what they have negotiated. What you're taught in union and agent school, you don't give more to management, to the team, than what has been agreed to in the CBA. This is not a David Samson pro-management thing by any stretch. This is actually very simply the rules that both sides agreed to. Why do you think baseball is so furious with the Texas Rangers and the Philadelphia Phillies? Do you think they're furious because, hey, it's not their money, it's the owner of the Rangers, it's Ray Davies, it's John Middleton. If they want to give an extra $100,000, that's that. What do we care? Do you want to know why they're angry? Because guess what it means when the Texas Rangers give $100,000 to Nathan Eovaldi? I love Nate. We had him. It means that that's another way that big market teams and high payroll teams can take advantage of the difference they have and of the financial muscle they have over small payroll, small revenue, small market teams. We wouldn't have paid $100,000 to our player, not because we didn't want to or didn't love the player. We wouldn't have paid the $100,000 bonus because we would have taken that $100,000. No, we didn't pocket it. We would have used it to invest in infrastructure or invest in minor league development or use it as part of payroll if we could. Do you know that the $100,000 that Texas used? Go find out, Pablo, whether or not that's part of luxury tax. Go find out whether you can promise a player, wink, wink, if you're not an all-star, hey, let's put a big all-star bonus in. Let's count that all-star bonus not as salary. And then guess what? We'll pay it to you whether you're an all-star or not. Well, man, that sounds a lot like salary. That sounds a lot like money that should go toward the competitive balance tax, doesn't it? Can you imagine if there's $1 million all-star bonus and then a player doesn't make it, whether they pitch on Sunday or not? Maybe you have a side agreement with the player, totally illegal. And the side agreement says, hey, we're going to pay you $10 million, but we're going to give you a $1 million all-star bonus. And hey, be an all-star. That'd be great. Wink, wink. We'll give you the $1 million either way. And then the player would say, well, what happens if I stink? And the team would say, no problem. We have the right to pay you whatever bonus we want. Whether it's counted in CBT or not, the fact of the matter is that it's simply an advantage that large payroll, large market teams would have over the rest. And what baseball is trying to solve for is shortening and making that gap smaller, not widening it. The second, on top of that, why the commissioner's office would be upset is that Why would you give something to a player who definitionally didn't deserve it? They didn't earn that bonus. We've got bonuses and contracts like for games finished. You give it to a closer, you give it to a reliever, saying if you become a reliever, a closer, and you finish 20 games, we'll give you an extra 50 grand. The season ends, and if you have under that number of games finished, of course you don't pay that bonus. That would make no sense. Everything the Rangers did here, and this is not in any way to impugn what Eovaldi did. It's in the CBA. Everything the Rangers did makes no sense. Are they doing it because of public pressure, because of what Dave Dombrowski said? Because of what Dave Dombrowski did and John Middleton? Because it certainly feels like that. But guess what? There's a whole lot of other Sunday pitchers who didn't get their all-star bonus. This is something that will have to be addressed in the next collective bargaining agreement. Coca, I'm going to do a long-term wait to see. We keep track of all of them on davidsamsonpodcast.com. The long-term wait to see is that the next collective bargaining agreement, whenever that's agreed to, whether there's a work stoppage or not, the next CBA will contain more specific language about the All-Star game and how bonuses get paid, whether players have to stay the whole game and actually participate in the swing-off. Specifics around the All-Star game will be in the next CBA. Wait to see. Before we go here, I wanted to finish with some other corrections because I had a couple that were, I'm sorry. I had told you that I thought that there were no stadiums with 5-foot walls, and we were talking about the robbery in the home run derby. Obviously, I forgot about Fenway Park. I forgot about Dodger Stadium. A bunch of you wrote to me for that correction. I totally blanked at the time, and I got it wrong. So thank you for that correction. I also got wrong when we talked about Hank Aaron. I don't know how I missed this. Hank Aaron hit his 715th home run not on July 15th, 1974. He hit it in April of 1974. And I thought it was so cool that they were honoring Hank Aaron on July 15th for home run number 715 on the anniversary of home run 715. And I just got it wrong. Hank Aaron, that was in April. I appreciate that. We also follow up on wait to sees on this show. The common thread here is that we are accountable for what we say. We're accountable for our nothing personal picks of the day. Those will return tomorrow. We're absolutely accountable for our predictions, our wait to sees, and when we get things wrong. I had this one nailed. Just yesterday, I told you the All-Star Game ratings are going to be higher than last year. No question about it. The home run derby ratings were up. It seems to make sense that the All-Star Game ratings will be up. You've got great star power, and I got it wrong. My official wait to see that the All-Star Game ratings would be higher than last year. No, didn't quite happen that way, so that's a no. One of the great things about the new 2-hour way that we do nothing personal is every Tuesday and Thursday, we're going to have a guest. And today's guest, which is going to come after the break, is Brian Campbell. We're pretty lucky to have him because A, he's the best at what he does. B, we don't get a chance to talk a lot of UFC, a lot of MMA, a lot of fighting. And we happen to have the number one. So stay tuned after the break. He will be here, and it's going to be live. Welcome back to Nothing Personal. It is hour 2 on Thursday, July 17th, 2025. And as promised, we have the co-host of Morning Combat. You can also see his work on his new YouTube page. It's called The Brian Campbell Experience. I can't wait to hear what that experience is. So let's bring him right in. Brian Campbell, welcome to Nothing Personal.
Oh, Samson, fired up to be here. Let's go. Yes. Bright and early.
It is bright and early. Thank you for being live. What is the Brian Campbell experience? Are we talking like life experience? What are we talking here?
I mean, it's heavy on combat sports, 1970s vinyl records, 90s NBA, little mental health, little inappropriate jokes mixed in. It's kind of like your chance to hang out with me in real life for a little bit at a time.
I'm going to subscribe.
I don't think you should, but thank you for the plug. Thank you.
Wait, I love 90s basketball. I love combat sports. And I love the thought of hanging out with you, but not really hanging out with you.
There it
is. Because then I can do it on my own time, not on yours.
I love it.
Are you going to get to go to the White House?
Get to or want to is probably the better question. I would say no. But it will be interesting to see when an octagon is potentially placed literally on the White House front lawn, who will get to be there, media wise, influencer wise, fan wise. I didn't have this on my bingo card, David, in 2025.
It's one of the most amazing statements I'd ever seen, where the president came out and said, as part of the 250th celebration of the country, we want to actually have a sporting event on the South Lawn, and who better to do it with than Dana White? They've both had unbelievable comments about it, as though it's a fait accompli, second use today of that expression. But is it actually a done deal that there's going to be a title fight on the South Lawn?
I mean, look, if you listen to the powers that be, the answer is affirming yes. And it really comes down to what is going to stop them. Obviously, you're going to have legitimate security concerns and more from the idea of putting on an event like this. But every time Dana White jumps on another influencer podcast, which is really the only front-facing media he prefers these days, he's telling you this will be the biggest card in UFC history. You've got John Jones, who they couldn't get back into a competitive fight in which they had to essentially wait him out into retirement, jumping at the opportunity to get back in there and fight Tom Aspinall on the White House lawn. You have Conor McGregor, who can't put down the party gimmicks long enough to take a full training camp, suddenly saying, yeah, I want to be there too. So look, when you are that close to the president of the United States, you can probably get anything done from the standpoint of regulation. I wouldn't doubt it. The question is, do we need this? Is this how we want to celebrate America 250 years in? I love combat sports, but combat sports is a Wild West mixture of all the best and worst things in life. I don't know if that's the best representation of America at 250 years, but, I don't think my voice will be heard in that regard.
Well, so what I'd want to go, and the reason I'd want to go to this is that I love being a part of anything that's history. I love being a part of something, and it actually makes sense. A sporting event in D.C., there's teams in D.C., they just happen to play downtown, but it's the only sport. I guess you could put a tennis court in, but how are they going to find, I was thinking about this, 20 to 25,000 people. It's going to have to be, it can't be a ticketed event. No. Because it's got to be an invite only in terms of security and all sorts of things that are happening, because, of course, the president will be there. Now, in theory, when you have fighters deciding, does Dana White, in your experience, ever give the power to anyone else to choose a card? Like, could the president actually be involved and say, oh, that's not a supporter, that's not someone who should be in the country, all the different things? Or does Dana White, is he the one in charge?
Well, it's a complicated question, but with largely simple answers. Dana White answers to almost no one but the television provider of the UFC's latest broadcast deal and his own boss, Ari Emanuel at TKO. And on the flip side, regarding Trump, does he have influence here? Yeah, probably a lot of it. But at the same time, it's not like there are any UFC fighters in 2025 that are against Trump, it seems. So this is sort of a perfect marriage of like-minded people. I don't think that would be an issue on I don't want this person, I want this person. But you're already hearing, like I mentioned, John Jones, Conor McGregor, the two biggest names that you could say are quote unquote active, even though, neither fight on a regular basis. The fact that they are jumping at the opportunity to be a part of this history, I don't think they're going to have a problem if they push forward to get the fighters, the type of fights they want on there. It just really comes down to the logistics of it. I don't think you can sell tickets to something like that. I think it's going to have to be a very select group. It reminds me somewhat of the May 2nd Times Square boxing card that Saudi Arabia's Turki Al-Sheikh recently put on, where under New York City law, they couldn't sell tickets. The only people that were able to sit ringside were essentially billionaires, influencers, invited special guests, no media. Media were told to go across the street into a restaurant and watch on a monitor. So I would, we're talking Times Square compared to the White House lawn. I don't think you're going to see, any Joe walking up and buying a ticket and being able to enter.
We're talking to Brian Campbell, the co-host of Morning Combat. Make sure you go to his YouTube page, The Brian Campbell Experience, and subscribe to it. And you just mentioned the name Turkey. I got to talk Turkey with you. People may not, and my audience may not be familiar, but there is a pretty famous guy in Saudi Arabia, and literally his name is Turkey, although I think that's his name. And he's got a title. He's called His Excellency, and it seems through the research that I did with the articles that Coca sent to me to read, which I wanted to do to prepare to talk to you, is he the most influential person outside of Trump and Dana White in the sport right now?
I think in all of combat sports, because you do have to add in the fact that when Dana White desperately wanted to get the UFC into the Sphere in Las Vegas last year and had some financial troubles with his own employers to do that, who did he call? He called Turkey, because we're looking at a point here where there's almost endless amounts of cash available to Turkey as a selected right-hand man of the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia and an employee of the government. We have never seen this type of power and influence come into boxing. Yes, we've seen power promoters. Think of a Don King who has tried, breaking the law here and there to essentially monopolize the sport, but was never fully successful. We always said, who is the person or entity that could come into a sport as broken and disorganized as boxing and actually bring some level of organization and unity? The first thing we always said was, you're going to have hundreds of millions of dollars to waste first to make that vision possible. Well, the amount of money that Turkey's bringing from the General Entertainment Authority Fund of Saudi Arabia, the PIL, the Public Investment Fund there, it's astronomical. Canelo Alvarez reportedly making $250 million for one fight against Terrence Crawford this fall. We've never seen it like that. Does he have influence over Dana? He's got some, but them partnering together, which they announced in March as TKO, Zuffa Boxing, Dana White, UFC, looks to really attempt to continue the full monopolization that they have done in both the pro wrestling and the mixed martial arts space. We are talking about an insane level of power here. And for Al-Sheikh, it's like there's been some good, there's been some bad. You got to pick your poison here. But at the end of the day, he's unifying promotions that typically don't work together. And he is making the fights that up to this point, whether it be finances, whether it be the constant bickering in boxing, they've been unable to be made. This guy arrives, he's got a war chest like we've never seen. And now the best are consistently fighting the best. You just have to ask yourself, is the other half of that equation okay for you? Boxing's got a long history of partnering with salacious creatures. I'm not necessarily calling Turki Al-Sheikh that, but this is on par with that when you consider the mafia controlled boxing in the 40s and 50s. And we've had so many big time promoters, like I said, looking to try to take over the sport. They've just been unable to do it. Turkey seems pretty close to getting that done.
Let's just remind people that we're talking about Turki Al-Sheikh and what did I pronounce it right? So what he's a representative of the Saudi Arabian government. They gave him a position, and it's like he's in the royal family, except he's got the keys to money Why? Because Saudi Arabia, and we've seen it across all sports, Saudi Arabia is trying to get involved. We used to call it sports washing, and now nobody wants to call it that anymore because the washing machine is done. It's in the clothes are in the dryer. The deals that Saudi Arabia are doing, and we don't need to get political together, but the fact is that there's no wow factor anymore. There's no frustration. There's no anger. And that's the exact point of what Saudi Arabia was trying to do, was to get people to not think of the atrocities and just think of the money. And so you put some guy in charge, and what you do, it's easy to be in charge when you've got the biggest wallet and the biggest stick. But when you're in a room with Turkey, when people are negotiating with him, he doesn't have any institutional knowledge of any of the things he's doing. He just has the money. How do you negotiate with that? So we talked about Canelo Alvarez, and we talked about the fact that his fight, $250 million. Is that money not coming from Netflix, or is that all coming from Saudi Arabia?
It seems to be a combination to a large degree. It's the fight that will kick off Dana White, Zuffa Boxing, and TKO's movement into the sport, partnering with Turki Al-Sheikh and using that considerable finances. Netflix is certainly going to put some money on the table and is playing a big role, but this is largely unprecedented what we're seeing here. I mean, you mentioned, image laundering or sports washing. This is largely on the bigger front about Saudi Arabia trying to turn around their image globally, not just to become a vacation destination, but to largely take the future financial focus off of the dependence on the oil industry and really looking to, I guess, progressively change the culture, that bringing in entertainment options for the youth of that nation. There's some good things that are certainly happening there. But again, this is money we have never seen before. Boxing has long been a disorganized group of pirates looking to secure their share of the pie, never really looking at the long-term health of the sport, really just looking at how do I survive? How do I get to that next paycheck? We have seen people in the sport bend over backwards to get a hold of the money that Turkey's bringing. I think the larger question here is, how long is that money going to last? And what is the potential pitfalls of partnering with an authoritative government that plays by a different set of rules? I don't want to get political. I don't want to make this about things it isn't, but entities like the New York Times have put out some pretty interesting reports about Turkey's past and his history, whether it's handling journalists who tweet negatively against them. He's got his own wing of a jail in Saudi Arabia named after him for people that say the wrong things.
Hold on, Brian. I'm sorry. Hold on. This is important. I just heard you say something that I must have misheard. He got naming rights to a jail?
He has a nickname in Saudi Arabia of Tutu, and according to a New York Times report, there is a section of the jail in Saudi Arabia that's nicknamed Tutu's Place, or whatever the official nickname is, that is exclusively for people who have tweeted negatively about his movement into sports, have criticized the government. There's been situations where journalists have arrived in Saudi Arabia and they've been imprisoned for up to 19 years for one tweet. So we are talking about a different level of, I don't want to say anything to piss off Dana White because I may lose my journalistic credentials and my access. I think this is a flip side to that argument in an area we've never been in before in boxing.
Because you're saying losing freedom may be more important than losing access to go to do business with Dana White. That is one of the great epiphanies in the show's history, that we're going to value freedom above Dana White. It's doing business with the devil. There's no question about it. And the power, you said that Canelo is going to make $250 million, and you were talking about that's just an insane amount of money. But I could argue that, look at the contracts in the NBA. Look at the contracts in the other major sports. They're all going to stratospheres that I never imagined during my 18 years doing what I did. So is boxing any different? There were always huge numbers. Even when we saw Mike Tyson fight or Holyfield or back in the day, boxers were making a tremendous amount of money on a per fight basis. Isn't this just the same sort of inflationary growth that we're seeing everywhere else?
I mean, yes and no, and a big no. I mean, we did see Evander Holyfield making, $26 million when he knocked out Buster Douglas in 1990 for the heavyweight championship. We saw that escalated up through 2015, Mayweather-Pacquiao, where Mayweather earned a guarantee of $100 million. And then, according to him, took home upwards of 300 million when all the pay-per-view receipts, all the hot dog receipts, all the t-shirts in the arena, all of that, when that was added up. This is another level to that. Now, look, Canelo Alvarez is the biggest star in the sport. This is going to be kicking off a new era on Netflix. It's sort of a generational fight against Terrence Crawford. But it's not just Canelo making that money. Seemingly everyone who agrees to sign up with Turki Al-Sheikh, fight on his ring cards, fight in Riyadh season, which is sort of the general name for the sporting events that Turkey brings to Saudi Arabia. People are making career high paydays like we've never seen before. There's a little bit of a negative in there. It's led to some fights where fighters weren't necessarily going for it. They were maybe sitting on their laurels and cashing that paycheck. Well, what has Turkey done since then? He's been very vocal. He said, no more Tom and Jerry fights. He says, I need smash, I need blood, I need real fighting. So you can earn that money, but there's now certainly a lot of pressure on you to perform and deserve that money. Is it an escalation comparative to pro sports? I guess to some degree. Although, look, I'm not bagging on Canelo's ability to make a buck. He was maybe Turkey's biggest enemy for a while, the biggest star fighter outside of Gervonta Tank Davis, who wouldn't sign with Turkey until the price got high enough, and suddenly he did. He's going to make that money for 36 minutes of work if this fight goes the distance. That, to me, is a lot more than an NBA player signing a one-year deal for $60 million.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I will agree. And if they need blood, if Turkey's looking for blood, I guess he could turn it into wrestling. And that would be one of the biggest concerns for your future and for what you're looking at, because you don't want this to become that. It's not a scripted, it's supposed to not be scripted, but it sounds like if the hand that's feeding you the gold wants a certain level of performance, that's sounding more and more like he wants to control even outcomes, and that should be scary to everybody. And he certainly wants to control the message. You remember Turkey just bought Ring Magazine.
Yes.
So he's actually trying to control the message, putting people in his own jail named after him for tweets that may go against him, telling fighters that, hey, I can't believe he uses the Tom and Jerry reference. That sort of makes me laugh thinking about them watching Tom and Jerry, unless there's a new up-to-date Tom and Jerry, and I'm too old to be cool to know what that means. But he seems to now want to control everything. Again, taking a small page out of the United States, in that this is not new. John Henry owns the Boston Globe and the Boston Red Sox. There are owners of teams who own newspapers and obviously worry about that conflict. And when Turkey does it, it sounds like that we get more upset because John Henry doesn't put people in jail.
Yes, there's that other half of it. And I'd be remiss to mention the multiple journalists that were actually killed by the Saudi Arabian government, including as recently as last month. Maybe this doesn't get the reporting level that it deserves, but it's certainly concerning. And in regards to his purchase of Ring Magazine, Turkey has spun it forward to create a very good series named after the ring that he's largely putting on in the U.S., which has been a nice change considering in the 2 years since Turki Al-Sheikh came to boxing, he's kind of killed the American boxing market just from the standpoint of taking all those big fights that used to come to Las Vegas, that used to attract the Mexican and Mexican-American fans that are still the financial backbone of this sport, and putting them in Saudi Arabia. For example, Canelo Alvarez fought May 3rd in his debut in Saudi Arabia. He fought at 7:30 a.m. local time in front of less than 4,000 people, compared to selling out arenas in Vegas and being such a big deal. But when Turkey purchased the Ring Magazine, there was a statement put out that this would be an editorial entity that was completely separate from him, from Riyadh season, from his dealings. Unfortunately, what we've seen since then is the exact opposite. Turkey using this legendary publication as essentially his own extension of his own voice, to carry out grudges, to call out his enemies, and to even threaten fighters and journalists in very subtle ways. So it's gotten pretty aggressive in that regard, on the idea of almost a state-run media entity, but that's where we are in 2025.
It's only a matter of time before everyone takes the money. And the fact is, it already happened in soccer. I mean, Ronaldo went there and took the money. They're trying to find, if you had NBA teams or basketball teams in Saudi Arabia, would it be crazy to think that he would make an offer? There'd be an offer made for $150 million a season, no salary cap, come over and play in our new league. You know, they did it with, Coca, Live, the golf tour. they funded that and said, hey, we're going to write you a check guaranteed. Phil Mickelson, you may stink, but what a great name. And just make sure you gamble it in our casinos. But at the end of the day, when you've got the money to throw around, it's not long before the money and the power become the same thing. And so, speaking of money and power, Brian, I got to get to Jake Paul
Yes.
because he is someone in the industry that he has taken a stand, actually. And he didn't want to deal with Turkey. He didn't want to deal with Saudi Arabia. But then what's going on with Jake Paul in your mind, in the business of Jake Paul?
Look, there's this idea, whether we're talking about, to be fair, the U.S. government today, or Dana White, or Turkey al-Sheikh, you're either with them or you're against them. And when you're against them, in a lot of ways, you're dead to them. But slowly but surely, almost every single entity that put up any kind of fight against Turkey al-Sheikh is inevitably bending the knee, sometimes for money and sometimes for not wanting to be on the outside looking in. When we're talking about Jake Paul, though, it's a little more complicated only because he's two things at once. He's the celebrity crossover YouTube fighter who's sort of threatening to go legit and get into real fights, real title fights. On the flip side, he's a promoter starting Most Valuable Promotions with ex-UFC COO Nakisa Bedardien in 2021. And I almost believe that that legacy has become more valuable to the sport, him as a promoter, than a fighter. He's done so much good. We just saw a Netflix fight last Friday night on an all-women's historic card from Madison Square Garden in New York, a huge sellout. Jake signing women fighters left and right. So suddenly when Jake Paul, who just earlier this year was reportedly in search of investment money as high as $100 million in an attempt to essentially become the American alternative to Turkey al-Sheikh, well, he flipped course. And this weekend there's pictures. Saudi Arabia doesn't have a great history of handling females in general. I mean, it took a while, even with WWE's business relationship there, to finally get females to appear on a pro wrestling card. But what Jake is probably doing is looking at the landscape and saying, there's one entity that's moving that way aggressively, and that's Turkey. That's Dana White, Zuffa Boxing, and that future. And everybody else is going to be left on the outside looking in. Turkey has come out in the last couple of days publicly and said he's looking to make a fight between Jake Paul and former heavyweight champion Anthony Joshua. It would be a lot easier for Jake to secure that fight if Turkey was involved and he was paying the salaries. I wonder if this helps future opportunities for Jake and his fighters. It's just interesting, though, one by one, everybody who was a vocal minority against Turkey is ultimately saying, do I want to be on the outside looking in, or do I want to get a piece of that pie? It seems like Jake is doing the same thing right now.
It's actually simple, Brian. You just follow the money. And Jake Paul wants to get investment into his promotion company. And one of the deals that I'm betting you that he says is, hey, if you invest in my fund, in my company, I'll do a fight with you. Obviously, you're going to pay me to do the fight, but I will do business in all sorts of different ways. And I love the fact that that is what business people do. And I am all in favor of it. You have to find financing for your company. And at the end of the day, when I'm looking at financing at different banks, I'm not doing the research to say, oh, does this bank support this or does this bank support that? I'm saying, who's giving me the best interest rate? Who's giving me the best opportunity to get access to capital? Jake Paul is no fool. And the access to capital, the road, the yellow brick road, it leads through Saudi Arabia. That's just a fact, Brian.
But that's true. There's no doubt about it. That's where the money is in combat sports. In some ways, it's the future in a lot of different entertainment areas. But there's almost this black cloud lingering over in the boxing game right now that I did want to bring up. Because remember, it wasn't that long ago that Jake was trying to raise money to go against Turkey. Remember, Canelo Alvarez had a contract signed to fight Jake on Netflix until he spurned Jake at the last minute and signed a 4-fight deal with Turkey. Is this right now? Everybody that signs up with Turkey is making a lot of money. You got to do it under Turkey's rules, under his ways. You got to put him in the front seat of the arena in front of the ring. You got to bow down and call him His Excellency. All that is required. But ultimately, he already called his shot, Turkey. And what I mean by that was there was a big press conference in March when he announced the partnership with Dana White, Nick Khan, TKO, and the idea of, the UFC backers finally getting to boxing. And one thing they ultimately told everybody is when this launches, it's us against the world. There was an actual quote from Turkey that said, Dana and I will crush the competition in boxing. Well, here's the problem.
He meant literally.
90% of the competition is currently making their money off of turkey and bending over backwards to stay as close to the supple nipple, if you will. I don't know if I can say that on this program, and get their good deal. My question is, when does Turkey's vision truly change? Meaning, we know Dana White and UFC is going to kick off their existence in boxing with Turkey's money on September 13th with this giant Netflix Canelo versus Crawford fight. We know that TKO is in the midst of renegotiating UFC rights, and a big part of that is to get Zuffa Boxing 12 events a year onto whichever network pays for it. When is the rest of boxing going to find out the truth of this idea that you're either with them or you're against them? Right now, they're with Turkey. Some promoters, especially some of these American ones, are almost relying on Turkey for their current financial security at the moment. When does that change where Turkey says to everybody else, sorry, it's Dana and I moving forward? It was odd to me that they telegraphed that announcement back in March. Some say, by the way, it was a message to Netflix to say, don't sign an exclusive deal with Jake Paul because there's a bigger entity coming. Either way, if you're the current promoters that are lining up to get that turkey cash, you do have to have an exit plan, because at some point it's going to, the rubber's going to meet the road, and it's going to be Dana, Ari, TKO, and Turkey and everyone else.
And if you want to hear more about this, all you have to do is listen to Morning Combat. Brian Campbell, the co-host of Morning Combat. We're already out of time. You promised me 25 minutes. I appreciate that you came on live. Co-host of Morning Combat, Brian Campbell. Also, go to his new YouTube page, The Brian Campbell Experience. I will not be seeing you at the White House. I will not be seeing you at the fights in Saudi Arabia, but I will be seeing you down the road. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
That's fun to speak to Brian. He's got so much passion, Coca. I love that. And the layers of what we're dealing with as it relates to Saudi Arabia, much more so than just in combat sports, but all over. We were able to touch on it, but it really is staggering to think about. There's going to be an end here. We just don't know what it is. And when you're an athlete and you have an opportunity to create optionality, when you're a business person and you have the option and the ability to create optionality, that only accrues to your benefit. Think about the way it works with American sports. It's incredible, actually. Of course, there's money involved, there's unions involved, but the draft. When you draft a player, you are the property of that team. There are unions in the past, hey, let's not do a draft, let's do total free agency. And the reason management doesn't want that is because the draft is a way to equally distribute talent, in theory, by making it about the quality of the front office and scouting. Something's going on in the NFL right now. Not enough attention is being paid to it. But are you aware that in the NFL draft, and we've talked about guaranteed versus not guaranteed money, and you may be listening to Pablo Torre Finds Out and all of the epiphanies and all of the leaked documents that Pablo gets with collusion, whatever, and all the different things that happen with guaranteed money. Baseball, all the dollars are guaranteed. In football, only what is guaranteed under contract and at signing is what's guaranteed. Well, it turns out when you draft a player in the second round in the NFL, that right now, 29 of 32 second-round picks are not signed, and we are weeks away from training camp opening. 29 of 32 of them aren't signed. Why is that? Are the 29 players colluding against their teams? Yes, they are. Now, it's not actual collusion, just like what the NFL did was not actual collusion. The legal term, the definition of it. But the 29 second-round picks, do you think for 1 second that they have not gotten together to say, hey, we're not happy here. We're not getting enough guaranteed money. We are not getting fully guaranteed contracts. The first two picks of the second round signed full guaranteed deals. Last year, the first two second-round picks did not get guaranteed deals. So the thought was, hey, we're making progress. What I'd like to propose is it has nothing to do with whether a deal is fully guaranteed. It has to do with the amount that you are guaranteed at signing. If I sign a $100 million deal as a second round pick with $5 million guaranteed, what I'm really signing is a $5 million deal. If the next year I only get a $50 million deal, but $10 million of it is guaranteed, would you agree that the second deal is better because I'm guaranteed $10 million and not 5? The way we talk about this, it confounds me. I struggle with it because, including what Pablo did in Pablo's show, and it's not Pablo, but what he's talking about with the money that went to Lamar Jackson and Russell Wilson and yada, 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 Kyler Murray, talking about whether it's fully guaranteed or not. Let's look at the money that the players are actually getting. So, how do you figure out what you want to do? The 49ers have a second round pick. He's the 43rd overall selection. His name doesn't matter, but his name is Alfred Collins. He reached agreement on a 4-year, $10.3 million deal. But the important part is that over $9 million of that was guaranteed. Therefore, to me, the number 43 pick, second rounder, that is pegged at over $9 million. Why would all of the other second round picks not fall in line right now and not sign as though there were slotting, which is why baseball did slotting in its draft in order to eliminate all of this gobbledygook nonsense, in order to let it be known to a player where you're drafted, that's where you are going to be, that's what you're going to get paid. Now, we can still screw around, we can still offer you less than the slot, and we can offer you what we think would be the right number, but we can't go over it. But generally, you see picks that slot in order unless it's acknowledged that you're picking a player at a number, like maybe the number 1 pick by the Nationals this year, that he otherwise would not have been at if he didn't get and agree to a lower number. The NFL draft is ostensibly the same thing. When people are brought in, the biggest difference is not guaranteed versus not guaranteed. Guaranteed versus not guaranteed. It's not about slotting. The biggest difference in the NFL draft is that all of these players, including the second rounders, are expected to actually be on the team. They're expected to actually contribute. Whereas in baseball, it is years until they contribute, if they contribute at all. So while we're sitting here telling you that, oh, the NFL Players Union, they're really working on these draft picks because in years past, a second round pick would get only 77% of his money guaranteed. But this year, a player got 88% of his money guaranteed. That means there's progress in the guarantee. Yeah, it does. That's the only thing that should be focused on by the players, not whether it's fully guaranteed. It is such a misdirection of our attention. And what the media talks to you about is focus on fully guaranteed. No, focus on total amount that's guaranteed, not the percentage, the actual notional dollar amount. Meanwhile, the NFL draft has an even bigger story that I get to follow up on, which makes me happy. We did a segment on Shamar Stewart. You remember him, the Cincinnati Bengals first round pick, still not signed. They're fighting over, wait for it, the guarantee. Why are they fighting over that? Because not only do you have to agree when you're negotiating with a player what the guaranteed amount of the deal is going to be. So in baseball, that's what is the total contract. In football, it's what's the total amount guaranteed at signing. Not only do you fight about that, but also you have to fight about what the language is that would allow a team to convert guaranteed money to non-guaranteed money. In baseball, it's the same thing. It's called the guarantee clause. Here's the 20 things you can't do. Don't be convicted or accused of a felony. Don't ride a motorcycle. all the different prohibited activities or prohibited things don't bring shame upon our organization. Quick hint and note to players and agents: don't sign guarantee language where it's sort of like a disparagement clause, which says that if you bring shame or you say anything negative about the organization, that they have the right to basically take away your money. Here's why you should never sign a clause like that, because what a fight that could lead to. I could say something like, I don't like breakfast at Meadowlark. And if I had a clause in my contract that called for me disparaging or saying something against Meadowlark Media, they could call me up and say, you said you don't like the eggs? Well, we are taking away your contract. And I would say, I was talking about eggs. That was not a material disparagement. No one cares what the quality of your eggs is. But there's now a fight. So when you are negotiating a contract the way that Shamar Stewart is, and you are negotiating what the guarantee clause is, that is very, very complicated, very, very important, and it's not done yet. So what Stewart is doing is he's working out at Texas A&M. And one of our friends, Bud Elliott, came up with the thought, well, wait a minute. What if he's going back to college? Maybe if he doesn't sign a deal with the Bengals, that he could end up going back and playing at Texas A&M. And it got my brain thinking, well, that can't be. Because once you get drafted, you're property of the team who drafts you. You've lost your amateur status. You cannot go back to college. That's the whole point of declaring for the draft and then being drafted. And then I said, uh-oh, everything's changed now. Because the college players aren't amateurs. They're all getting paid NIL money. So it may be a way better situation because the guaranteed clause for the NIL deal at Texas A&M may be better than the guaranteed clause with the Cincinnati Bengals. Is it possible that there's NIL deals that could be better than what first-round money that's being made by Shamar Stewart or that would be made? We don't know because we don't know what the guarantee situation is. But what are the rules about that? Can all players drafted use leverage and threaten to go back to college? In baseball, you have a period of time when you're drafted out of high school that you've got the leverage to say, oh, I'm not going to sign with you. I'm going to go to college. Except in baseball, 9 times out of 10, they're lying because they don't want to go to college, because they want to get into the minor league system, because they may be a young call-up to the big leagues if they're good, and that gets their clock started toward free agency, which is the goal of every player. So we never took it all together seriously that players were threatening college. And by the way, you want to go to college? TTFN. Ta-ta for now. On to the next guy. But in college football, when you're drafted, the Bengals need Shamar Stewart. They want him on that team. And if the player can use the actual ability to go back to A&M or any college, this is a big, big situation. So let's follow the Stewart situation and find out whether or not he ends up with the Bengals, or does he actually end up back in college? Tell you who's not ending up with the Phoenix Suns. Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal gone. Bradley Beal saying, thank you, Phoenix. It's been a slice of heaven. I'm happy to give up $13.8 million of my remaining $110.8 million that you guaranteed me, and you have to pay me even though I stink, and it was an absolute untradeable contract. So thank you for releasing me, and I'm happy to give you back almost $14 million. I'm happy to let you do the Dame Lillard stretch over 5 years. Keep the dead cap money. Matt Ishbia, you and Justin are doing great because I'm going to the clip joint. Bradley Beal signed a 2-year, $11 million contract with the LA Clippers. He will get back $11 million of his $13.8 million over 2 years. And then he's still got multiple years to get paid by Phoenix because he's getting all of the 110.8 minus 13.8 of it, plus 11 that he's getting from the Clippers. How in the heck did the Clippers agree to give him $11 million guaranteed? And better than that, how are people around the NBA and the NBA media going to try to convince you, again, thinking that you're stupid, saying, oh, God, what a great deal for the Clippers. Getting Bradley Beal at $5.5 million a year. This guy is going to be a perfect complementary piece. You can add him at that exception, and you're talking about greatness. Well, if it were so great, you'd think that being combined with Devin Booker and Kevin Durant would have been enough to actually get something done in Phoenix. But in fact, it never was. So why is it that the Clippers feel that they can do something with Beal that the Phoenix Suns are willing to pay in basic salary cap space? And when I say dead cap in the NBA, it's dead, like actually dead. Not like NFL dead cap and all of the absolute crap that we tell you about what dead cap money is in the NFL, because all we do is mislead you. Dead cap money in the NFL is about cash that is not spent, can be spent, but the player doesn't get. In the NBA, the player is still getting it. The fact that the Phoenix Suns have this dead cap money, it's actually their payroll because they're actually paying the player. It's like in baseball. When we release a player, do you think the Yankees don't have to pay DJ LeMahieu next season? Of course they do. DJ LeMahieu will be on their paid roster. He won't be on their 26-man roster. He won't be on their 40-man roster, but he will be part of the payroll roster that the president and the GM carry around with them. He'll be part of the payroll every 2 weeks. Bradley Beal is still going to be part of the payroll of the Phoenix Suns the way Lillard is still going to be part of the payroll of the Milwaukee Bucks. And what Bradley Beal gets to do, it's not even mitigation because the Phoenix Suns don't get a break. They still have to pay the money. I'm fascinated by this story. I'm fascinated by the player, Bradley Beal, getting any amount of money from anyone. And on top of that, I do have to wonder whether or not this was a prearranged situation because the money is so close that the Clippers guaranteed that they were allowed to guarantee to exactly what Phoenix gave up in order to have 15% of the remaining count toward the salary cap. Think about that for a hot second. $10 million is a lot of money. We can all agree on that, can't we? I have a correction. It's not a correction, Coca. You know what? Change that. 4869. In other news today, it turns out the International Tennis Hall of Fame has rejected the $10 million gift from hedge fund billionaire Bill Ackman that was promised to him. Front Office Sports had this story, and it's a brilliant story. And I suspected that there was a gift in place to the International Tennis Hall of Fame that was part and parcel to his ability to play as a professional tennis player in a tennis match. Remember, he competed in the Hall of Fame Open in Rhode Island last week. He committed to playing in doubles. He lost 6-1, 7-5, but doesn't matter. And it became a huge, big PR nightmare. And what the International Tennis Hall of Fame decided to do, shockingly so, is they said, you know what? We don't want your $10 million. And my first thought was, that can't be right. $10 million gift to the International Tennis Hall of Fame that was going to go toward youth initiatives, was going to grow the game, was going to help an endowment that would help the operation of the Hall of Fame because dollars are fungible. If you've got $10 million in an endowment that generates $500,000 a year, that's $500,000 a year you don't need in your operating budget to give grants or to do whatever the youth programs are that the Tennis Hall of Fame does. That money matters tremendously in their operating budget. Why would they turn that down? Are you telling me that the Tennis Hall of Fame was so worried about the PR because Bill Ackman may have paid his way to play a doubles match, or Bill Ackman may have done something that would look unsavory, and that there was PR of people and former tennis players who said, my God, this is wrong? Are any of those people who were criticizing it willing to pony up the $10 million? Are you all happy now all of you complainers, all of you people who said, oh, this is so terrible for the billionaire to do this, are you all going to replace the $10 million? Just asking. What are your thoughts on that? When you come out so against this gift, you going to do it? Because Bill Ackman, he walked away when you rejected it, and he decided to give his money to a different organization. He's giving away the same $10 million, except now it's going to a different one called the Junior Tennis Champion Center in College Park, Maryland. That's another charitable endeavor. It's another 501c3. It's another place where you are doing what you can to try to help youth do programs, expand facilities, impact the sport of tennis. Bill Ackman went to X and gave a very lengthy post explaining all this, and I didn't believe it. I didn't believe for 1 second that it was possible that the Tennis Hall of Fame turned it down. What I thought is maybe because of PR, they said, hey, we're not going to take the $10 million gift from Bill Ackman, but we'll take it from Bill Ackman's foundation. And that if Pablo Torre did some finding out, he would find out that that $10 million still went to the Hall of Fame because it was part of a quid pro quo. Now, if we do find that out later, then I guess I'm going to be wrong again. But Bill Ackman seemed to have turned it all around and said, you know what? I'm never dealing with those guys again. I'm moving on to a different, better program. It seems to me that the Hall of Fame decided that they wanted to stand on principle, and that principle is going to make it so their business becomes less liquid, their business becomes less able to actually be effective. Is it true that we are going to let PR completely dictate what we do? There are certainly examples when you've got something that happens that you want to stay away from. No doubt about it. When there's associations with people, but we just talked to Brian Campbell earlier in the show. Hey, we don't want to deal with Saudi Arabia. Uh-oh, money involved. We'll deal with Saudi Arabia. Hey, we don't want to deal with this, money involved. All right, we will. When it's a player who does something that you don't want to be involved in, like a Trevor Bauer, that's an easy one. You don't get involved with Trevor Bauer. You move on. You don't think about it. He ages out. He turns out to end up stinking, not a good pitcher, so you don't have to deal with it anymore. But it's totally different when it's a donation. It's totally different when it is revenue and not expense. Players, expense. Donations, revenue. Sponsors, revenue. Media deals, revenue. The difference between revenue and expense is critical because you need revenue to pay expenses. When you're an organization like the Tennis Hall of Fame, you are always raising money because you're trying to run your foundation, your business. And for Ackman to so quickly turn around and find so easily an organization that would take his $10 million, why do you think it happened so quickly? If you had a guess? Well, I'm not going to make you spend much time guessing. It's because who in their right mind would turn down a $10 million gift? You have to be simply out of your mind. And the Hall of Fame board, the Tennis Hall of Fame board, they had the gumption to send a letter to Hall of Fame members saying that they rejected the Bill Ackman $10 million to avoid any perception of impropriety. Wait, that's impropriety. That's not. Is the impropriety because there was a trade, the $10 million gift for the double slot? Was that the impropriety that we knew was true, that now they're admitting is true? And if you're going to admit it's true, you might as well just take the money? Because now when you're saying you're avoiding impropriety, what it actually means is, wait a minute, the perception of impropriety, smoke, fire, maybe there was. To me, I'm taking the $10 million and I am simply going to say, hey, Hall of Fame members, it's just business. We'll be back tomorrow. This is nothing personal.